What's up, y'all? It's your boy R to the A to the S. Yes, Rise here with Proceed with Carson Blog, and today we are doing a retro review of, oh Lord, I hope I pronounce this right, Solus Christus project by Shai Linne. Came out in 2005. And fun fact, I did not hear this album in 2005. I probably heard it maybe 2006 or maybe even 2007. Did not know about lamp mode. I was on what they had back in the day on message boards, and I think I probably saw people discuss this project, but I had no idea about Shaolin, about lamp mode, anything like that. So I never bought the album. It wasn't in the Christian bookstores. You had to order it online, and it just was not on my radar. Now I had heard of Shaolin, but from the Rock Soul days. I remember him in there. I remember he had some dope lines, but I never bought the album and never even thought of buying the album. So I'm late to Lamp Mode, to Timothy Brindle. Everybody else had heard it. I did not hear it. And so I'm just gonna give you also a little brief things about some of the songs, my overall thoughts on this project. Now let's start with the intro. I'm not gonna make some of y'all mad, but this was like a real Philly album. Now I know you're gonna say, what you mean by that? You got Crossmover. They did Philly albums way before this. True. But this album, even with this intro, I felt like I was listening to something like The Roots or something. I don't know if it's live instrumentation on here, but it has a live instrumentation feel. Because I've heard DJ Essence beats. I think they sound like live instrumentation and he actually sampled. So I don't know if it's live instrumentation, but this was really different because it had this live instrumentation, Questlove type of feel with the drums, all of these things. So it was really unique. Random thoughts. This was real interesting to me too. Well, when I first heard it, he sounded like he was doing some battle rap type stuff, man. Again, like I told you, I heard him around Rock Soul, but yeah, this he was just really going in with some of the lines, some of the disses. Now you might not think of a diss in that sense, but just throwing some lines at Oprah and just stuff like that. It was like, whoa, like he really going in. Now, Christ crucified. This song, oh my God. Particularly with some of the lyrics on this. Y'all know I'm not no Ryan Scheme person, but when I heard him do that, this lyrics when he did the politicians might slit throats to get votes, while rich folks would jolt sip coke on big boats. I was like, oh my goodness, like lyrically, that was just crazy to me, and that's when I knew, man, like Shaolin, he is something special, man. So just lyrically, again, I'm not into the whole lyrics and stuff like that, but he just brought it. Check 1-2 with Stephen the Levite and Fanatic, formerly known as Fanatic, now Fanatic. Now, this song is very interesting because I mean, I would know years later Stephen the Levite, but I didn't know who he was. I mean, they all brought it on here, but yeah, it was my introduction to him, but it's crazy. Like, nah, years later, you're like, yeah, you know these dudes, but nah, before then, I didn't know that. I just knew for not it. The Heart First remix, like, this was just real jazzy. Like I said, that Philly vibe, roots, neo soul, whatever you want to say. It was just different to hear from a East Coast cat to bring that vibe and CHH. It was just a different vibe. Now, the title track, this is 100%, like I said, Philly roots. This sound like, I can't remember what roots beat this sound like, but it has a very similar vibe to it. And it was just dope. I mean, you got the whole, what I call pollen posse or reform theology, whatever you want to say, man. bringing that lyrically on that, and then you have the whole roots type beat. It was just a whole different vibe. World Wide Web. This is funny. Listen to this years later. Like, what in the world? No pun intended. What in the world? But looks like what in the world? Like the references on here. I am. Like I remember the I am. You know, we do DM, but back then it was the I am, and then he mentioned all these things we don't even really use no more, Yahoo and the World Wide Web. And it's weird listening to it in 2026. But, you know, yeah, back then that was kind of cool. But it's like, this song is like outdated. But then it was exciting to hear Cruz Cordero because you remember he had left cross moving and then, hey, he popped up on here. I know he did some other pop-ups on some other album, but it was few and far between. So it was interesting to hear Cruz on here. Then you got like Dark Night of Soul. This is a whole different vibe. None of this confidence. This just seemed to be a person in agony and a point in his Christian faith where he's, I guess you can say, feeling distant from God or whatever. So it was just real different to hear that type of vibe to it. Then my portion, you know, it was again the quietness of him on here, the whole, I won't say braggadocious, but whole bravado style is just gone, and it's just like a person just stripped, and it's just like he's real quiet on here. So I just like the whole vibe of the switch. And then you got John Piper being sampled. I don't know who was the first person to sample John Piper or whatever, but this was like the first time. I think I was listening to John Piper at this time, but I'm not sure. I know I have read some of his books, but yeah, this is like to hear John Piper, to hear a white preacher on a Christian rap album was, that was just different. I never heard anything like that. But again, the type of background, polyposse type of theology came from. Nah, I guess you could say it wasn't a big surprise, but it was just kind of different. And of course, lyrical theology. I mean, just what it says. The whole, I'm bringing this lyricism mixed with this theology of God, explaining what this brand of rap is. I know there's some debate about, you know, Christ centric, you know, also had their things similar to this, but, you know, just defining what this genre is. Then you got something like, you know, Justify was going at talking about a whole chapter of the Bible, Romans 3, and just going a little survey over what this chapter is about and things of that sort. So again, it's just something different, something I had never heard somebody try to do. A lot of work, and you know Shai Linne, he does a lot of work in the things that he does. So I mean, years later, it's not a surprise, but yeah, it was just a lot. Then you look at something like Memoirs, where he's talking about some things he still talks about, even on this present album now. Talked about his father. Talked about, and he does he mentioned a couple of times. He mentions about racism, talks about cops and things of that sort. Now back then, this was before cancel culture. You could do that. I don't think anybody would raise an eye then. Of course, now that's different. You know, white Christians will object to you mentioning things about race and things of that sort. But back then, I don't think this was even controversial. But you see some of the things from back then is something he's still covering with Shai Linne now. Now I mean, he's definitely a different person. Like the battle rap, that part of him is gone. I felt the same way about Timothy Brindle. I missed that, but you can see some of the pieces from this album going on and expanding to who he is today. But overall on this album, man, I thought, like I said, it was very different. I mean, the groundwork that this laid for somebody like, for example, Flame or whatever, who took this whole lyrical theology thing and did it in a southern way or whatever. You know, this album was a forerunner to a lot of Christian rap and laid the foundation for a lot of what was in that movement. I guess you can say the movement is dead. I mean, it's not a lot of people still doing this type of rap, but this for that period of time and through the 2010s, you know, this album laid some foundation. So that's my thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Did you like this album back in the day? Have you heard it? Is this his best album? What do you think? This is Perceivable Caution Blog. Skip Bayless sucks and I'm out.